This is CJ with the GOAT Sports Talk. Of course, UFC 214 with John Bones Jones with DC, Daniel Cormier. And, pretty much at this point, I think that this is going to be, probably the best, MMA fight, probably of the last, 5 years. I mean, I think that this could be a historic one. We know that the Diaz and McGregor one was amazing, but this one could top it all. The reason why is because both of these guys are wrestlers. You're going to get a lot of technical stuff. This will be the case, especially if it goes, all the way to the distance. And I think that it could happen. I think that the obsession that, Daniel Cormier has with beating John Jones and the emotion that he's had over the last couple of years, man, has been really real. And I think that his whole life, this is like the mountain peak moment for his life, potentially. I really believe that that's how he thinks. And that's a very dangerous man that really is obsessed with beating this guy who is largely considered, easily probably the best, light heavyweight of all time. I mean, you're talking about guys like Anderson Silva, who is probably, many consider the greatest mixed martial artist. But when you're talking about John Jones, you're talking about a guy who is, still young. I mean, you're talking about in the mixed martial arts game, and when it comes to fighting, it's a very different type of sport where really you peak in your 30s. You really should be peaking in your 30s, in part because of the fact that, physically you should still have it. Also, you're usually picking up other skills, as well. And that's what's happening with John Jones. As of right now, he's picking up other skills. We know that these guys are both wrestlers. We know that, what happened last time, we don't know whether or not PEDs had an effect, because what happened to Daniel Cormier, just from a wrestling perspective, it shouldn't even have happened to him, considering just the level of a wrestler he is. We're talking about an Olympic wrestler. We're talking about one of the, greatest wrestlers, of all time that came out of the U.S. And he gets thrown around, by John Jones, and a couple of times. It's kind of crazy, So with it now, that looming over the head as far as the PED, the so-called, performance enhancing drugs, nothing is going to hopefully hold back, this particular fight. No disqualifications, nobody getting suspended afterwards. Both fighters hopefully should be clean. We know that the striking ability and length of John Jones is one of the greatest of all time, and top of his wrestling skills. So that's going to be very interesting to see how he combats that. I believe that for the last 2 years, especially leading up to the fight, Daniel Cormier has been working strictly on that, on basically combating a lot of the things that he couldn't do and trying to neutralize those things with John Jones. On top of that, you're talking about some ring rust with John Jones, and that could factor in. That could play to his advantage. So, I don't know how this is going to end. We know that MMA fights are very funny. It can end fast, or it could go all the way. And, I think Daniel Cormier is going to try and neutralize the striking ability and try and take John Jones to the ground. And I believe that with the amount of training that he's had on the wrestling side and with his conditioning, that he plans to make this more of a floor match. And he plans to probably win by submission. Ultimately, I think that's his goal, is to probably win by submission, which would probably be his best chance that he would have against him. So they both look pretty good at the weigh-in. Expect it to be, fireworks. A lot of people have been talking about the McGregor fight, versus Mayweather, but I believe that a lot of people at the last minute are going to get into this fight. I believe that it's going to be one of the fights that's going to be talked about, for the rest of the year. It might be fight of the year, boxing or MMA. It's just that has that much, and I'm surprised that the hype hasn't been as much leading up to it. And I know that the McGregor, Mayweather fight has been talked about a lot, but I think for Dana White, it would have been good if they had really pushed this a lot more in the media and tried to get that more out there versus talking about, the Mayweather-McGregor fight. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I think people are going to tune in. It should be a good one. It should be an all-time classic. The winner of this will more than likely, especially if Daniel Cormier wins, I think that they will be parading him as the greatest light heavyweight champion, considering, his record and who he's beating. The only guy he's really standing in the way is this guy, the only guy that's beat him in the UFC, which is John Jones. So at the end of the day, man, let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm out.